God bless you. This is Pastor Alan Payne coming to you live from Mirror Image Church Without Walls. Back to you again today. We're making this a 3-part day today. So if you've been trying to catch up with us, we're here. We have 3 recordings today. And now what? That's what we named this one. And now what? What are you talking about now? We've been talking about how Jesus interacts with us through trials and tribulations all day long. So why are you getting on here again? Well, we're not finished. We're not finished. God is not finished with you yet. God wants to tell you one more time before we get done today that He loves you. He cares for you. He understands that you're going through a trial or tribulation, and He is there with you. And in this chapter, in chapter 1 of James, this was speaking to the young Christians of the time, and it says, "Consider it all joy, brothers." And this is chapter 1, verse 2. "Consider it all joy, brothers, and sisters, when you face trials and tribulations." It says this is a test of your faith. Have you ever felt like your faith is getting tested? You go and wake up in the morning and something happens and you're like, "Oh man, I can't believe this," and then, "Man, I can't believe that," and this and that is happening, and you're like, "Wow, what is going on, God?" Well, we read earlier that it's not God that does these things to us. We're not tested by God. God doesn't put bad things in our lives. He actually says that in verse 13, it was saying that our own evil thoughts and our own evil things that are in our lives produce these trials and tribulations. So our own selves, basically, we set these pillars up in our lives where we're trying to do good, and we put these things. Imagine it like if you're on a football field, and the football field, they have, if you ever watched the football players, they're practicing, and they have those big pillars that they push down the field. And the players with the football field, when they push them down the field, they have those things. And those things are like the things in your life that God wants to get you out of your life, but we're just trying to push them down the field. We're trying to push those big pillars down the field. So those things are in the way. There's things in the way in our life when we're trying to be blessed. And instead of pushing them out the field, God wants to yank them out and pull them away. Sometimes we try to get so caught up. We get so caught up in certain things in our lives. And when we get caught up in those things, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're focused on? What is it that we're focused on? Where is our focus? Where's our concentration on? Are we focusing on God? Or are we focusing on something else? Where's our main focus? Through these trials and tribulations we've been reading about all day long, we've been reading about going through the fire, going through the test of time here. It's one of those things that it's like, wow, everybody goes through this stuff. Yeah, everybody does go through this stuff, but let's get the important thing here. How do we get out of going through this stuff, right? That's the thing we want to know. I've been going through this stuff. Let me see how I get out of going through this stuff. And that's the thing that we're talking about tonight, is getting out, getting to the other side, seeing the end of the rainbow, seeing after we've seen all the hard parts, let's get to the good part. Let's get to the end of the line. And that's what we're talking about tonight. After we've gone through all the trials, when we're in the midst of all the storm, like Florida was in just a little while ago, we were in the midst of a storm. But when we turn to Jesus in the midst of the storm, when we put our faith not in what we can see, but in what we know to be true. That's how we get out of the trial and tribulation. See, we can't put our faith in what we can see, because what we can see may not be good. You know, Paul and Silas found themselves in jail at one point. They found themselves in jail. They were bars locking them up. But their heart was not in jail. Paul called on Jesus, and Jesus unlocked the bars to jail, because he knew that where he found himself in sight wasn't the same place that he found himself in his mind. And that's the same thing that Jesus is telling us today, is that even though the circumstances might look like you're going through a bad situation, God says don't look at the physical circumstances. This is what he's telling you today. Don't look at the report of the devil. Don't look at the situation. Don't look at the doctor's report. Don't look at the bill collector's report. God has something bigger for you than what the doctor can tell you or what the bill collector can tell you. It's what the Lord tells you in his word. In his word, he's given you a new report. Here in James, he's given you a new report. And he's telling you that even though it looks one way, God's got an answer for that one way. And his one way is Jesus. Jesus is transforming that thing that you think is bad into something special. It's a process. So you're not seeing it all come to fruition at one time. So you're not seeing it all change just like that. But as we're talking, it's transforming even now. So you have to understand that God has a purpose. We said it before in the last broadcast, and I'll say it again. Focus on him, and he will focus on you. Focus on him, and he will focus on you. Put your trust in him, and he will focus on you. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just say, okay, I'm not going to worry about those situations with what the doctor said. I'm not going to worry about the situations with what the bill said. I'm not going to worry about the situations with what he or she said, with the family situation said, what whoever said. I'm going to worry about what Jesus is saying. I'm going to concentrate on what Jesus is saying in his word. I'm going to live up to those situations just by living what Jesus has said in his word. I'm concentrating on focusing on what God has promised me. I'm not going to no longer worry about what everybody else is going to focus on. I'm going to focus on what Jesus says to focus on. That's what he's saying to do. Saying no more worries, no more fears, because faith is here. No more worries, no more fears, because faith is here. That's what he's saying to say. No more worries, no more fears, because faith is here. God wants you to say that and shout it from the rooftops. No more worries, no more fears, because faith is here. God has an answer to the problems of the world, and he is that answer. So you tell your problems how big your God is, and they'll see that your problems are not that big, because your God is much bigger than your problems. God bless you and keep you. God let his face shine upon you and give you peace. And remember, no more worries, no more fears, because your God is here. God bless you tonight. And remember, God is the answer.